Well, hello there, and welcome everyone to episode 30 of the Classic Rock Podcast. For those about to pod, we salute you. On this week's episode, we shall be discussing the year in rock, which is 2002. We will be going through our latest news, some new releases, Matt's alleged best part of the show, Hidden Gems.
Facts can't lie.
And... Anyway, you've interrupted Mr. Rogers, so I'm going to introduce you anyway. Here he is, my co-conspirator, an interrupter, co-interrupter, Mr. Matt Rogers. How are you, mate?
I'm doing all right, thank you. Are we doing this weekly now? You said something about this week's. I didn't get that memo.
Oh,
I mean, this time, we're not going weekly. We're staying normal 3 weekly.
It's all right.
Cadence.
No.
Anyway, so how are you? You doing all right?
I'm very well, mate. I'm very well.
Yeah, I know you are. Yeah, I can tell. You got that glow about you. So it's been my birthday, isn't it? Right.
It has been your birthday. Another year around the sun.
Another trip around the sun, man. Yeah, we did it last time, didn't we? The trip around the sun. No one actually said that to me, fortunately, which I'm quite pleased about. Yes, It was my birthday. Thank you, everyone who sent me wishes and stuff. And lovely presents from you, Brian.
Did you get any presents, Matthew?
Our own branded merch. Look at that. And we've got our own mugs as well. We're not recording this, but we do have our own mugs. Once upon a time, Brian and I used to drink alcohol when we were doing this podcast, but now we drink tea out of our own mugs. Or at least I think it's tea, Brian. I could be wrong.
I am drinking tea, Matthew. It's a Sunday afternoon. It's a drinking tea time. Okay,
very good. So, news time. What's in the news, Brian? What's caught your eye?
What's caught my eye? So, poor old Judas Priest, bless them. They've had as you know, they've been a 4-piece. They've been a 5-piece. At one point this week, I actually thought KK Downing had actually rejoined Priest. Somebody put it on a YouTube on a YouTube channel, said, KK returns to Priest, but obviously it was more KK's return to KK's Priest. So I was all excited that KK Downing had rejoined Priest, but they've just missed out on being eligible for a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, and they've just missed out to those metal gods that are Eminem, Duran Duran, and Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah.
But
it's a shame.
But what they need to do, Matt, is, and yes. I suggest this to all of our rock bands that are eligible, is you need to tell everybody that you don't want the award. And then you get in, because Dolly Parton said, bless her, she said, thank you for the nomination, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I haven't really done a rock record. I'm a country star, therefore, thanks for the nomination. I won't, please don't include me in the induction process. Yeah. But they did anyway.
Good tactic, actually.
Yeah.
Good tactic.
And she's going to accept the award now. So Judas Priest need to come on, like most of our rock bands, and go, no, thanks. No, thanks. I don't want to be. Thanks for making me eligible. I don't want to be included in it. And then everybody will vote out of sympathy.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, of course, we'll be covering the Dolly Parton piece on our other sister podcast, the Country and West podcast, for those about to country and western. I've got to work on the name.
That's weekly. That's the weekly one. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the weekly one. We've got so much to talk about there. Yeah, tune in for that weekly, everyone. So, moving on, a couple of things that have caught my eye recently. Gene Simmons of Kiss, who everyone would be aware of, probably, very much larger than life character. So Kiss are on he's been in the news recently. Kiss are on their farewell tour. I think it's actually a farewell tour this time.
Not like the Scorpions.
Well, they've actually abandoned the concept of their farewell tour because they're having such a good time. They recorded 2 albums in the space that they were on their farewell tour. So I think they've kind of, sort of decided to carry on. But because this is their farewell tour, and Gene Simmons has invited Ace Frehley to join them for encores on the tour, which I think is very gracious in some ways, is basically saying, come to all the gigs, hang around for a couple of hours, and then come on for the encore. And also, what about Peter Criss? And what about all the other guys that have been in KISS over the years? There's been a few. I mean, obviously, one or two are no longer with us. But I thought, oh, well, okay. I mean, we're seeing Ace Frehley in the summer.
We are. I'm the first KISS person I've ever seen.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, on that subject, I mean, I think as it is their farewell tour, and I've seen KISS, I think if you can, go and see them, because they do put on one heck of a show, Brian.
Donington Sunday night.
They are on download on Friday night, actually, to be precise. But
we'll get to that later on do's and don'ts of gigs.
Exactly. That's one of the things. You've got to make sure the gig is on the right day before turning up. Yeah, we'll come to that later in gig do's and don'ts. Now, also in the news, and this I thought was very, very nice and funny at the same time. So a guy in South Korea, he's been in touch with Queen, or the remaining members of Queen, since 2014, asking their permission, getting their blessing for putting up a statue of the late, great Freddie Mercury. Have you seen this, Brian? Have you seen this?
No,
statue?
I haven't. No.
You should check it out. So eventually he got the blessing from Queen and the approval, let's say, and he's done this statue out of bronze. It's about 5'9" tall, which I assume was Freddie Mercury's height. But I would urge everyone to take a look at it, because I mean it does look a bit like Freddie Mercury, but it reminded me more of a cross between George Michael in his sort of early solo career heyday and John Travolta from the Saturday Night Fever era, with a sprinkling of Village People thrown in. So have a look, everybody, and tell me what you think. But I thought that's quite sweet. This guy's been lobbying it's a tribute, obviously, to the great man. Not the greatest tribute necessarily, but a tribute all the same. I can tell you're looking at it now. But anyway, so moving on. So
is it one of those ones? It's the thought that counts.
Exactly. That's what I always tell my wife. It's the thought that counts.
Yeah. It's like that tattoo you get of your favorite rock artist, and it looks nothing like it.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it is Phil Lynott. It really looks so much like Jimi Hendrix. It's Jimi Hendrix then. Okay. All right, let's move on.
Talking about somebody who recently, in the last few years, has got themselves covered in tattoos. Do you remember David Lee Roth? Like David Lee Roth in his pomp and circumstance was a tattooedless man. And now, when you see David's torso, he's got tattoos all over him. But it was really interesting the last couple of weeks. Probably the two bands that we follow and love who are the least present on social media are AC/DC. Usually the album has been recorded for 6 months before we see anything. They're infamously quiet and guarded on social media, as are Van Halen. So last couple of weeks, good old Jason Newsted, formerly of Metallica, was part of a proposed project, or Van Halen celebration tour, where Jason was going to be potentially playing bass and Joe Satriani was going to be playing guitar. So social media is just blowing up in the last week or so, and David has come out and said, well, in the COVID times that we have, we need to have two people in each position. So he's going for Alex Van Halen and Tommy Lee on drums, which I thought was interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Joe Satriani on guitar and Steve Lukather from Toto. Now, but then when we move into the bass duties, Michael Anthony gets a shout, which I thought that's nice, and Jason Newsted. And then, of course, who's going to be the it's going to be Dave. Dave's obviously going to say himself on vocals. And I know who I would have gone as the second vocalist in this band. But he decided that the only person that could that would be able to do his position well was Pink.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. I thought you were going to put yourself forward as the other singer.
You're only saying that because you'd like to see me try and do the splits.
I would. That's really what it's all about, in your spandex and doing the old leg flips. So that's interesting. Pink. I mean, she's good. She's great. Pink.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Great singer, great performer. But that's an interesting choice, isn't it? Well. I mean, look, as with everything.
Yeah.
We'll see how that plays out.
So let's maybe Van Halen is going to. Obviously, the chances of it ever coming to the UK are none.
Yeah. Unlikely. Unlikely. Well, it's funny you should mention Van Halen, because something a feel good story that I read this week. I thought this was lovely, to be honest. Eddie Van Halen, who sadly passed away coming up 2 years. Later this year, he in his will he left $1 million to an organisation called Mr. Holland's Opus Foundation. It's a charitable organisation, and its aim is to promote music and music education to children across the US.
Yeah,
and I thought that was lovely. I thought that was so nice. So what a lovely legacy! $1 million. Left to that organisation, and I thought that was great, and that made me feel good when I read that. And it's not the first time that he was involved in that organisation. Do you remember a few years ago he donated a few of his guitars?
He did indeed.
You need to do, Brian. You've got far too many guitars kicking around. But I thought that's great. Good on you. Good on you. I mean, obviously he's now no longer with us, but good on you, the Van Halen family, for obviously honouring that request by the late great Eddie Van Halen, of course.
And just finally, and the last bit of Van Halen related news, which is something that excited me, probably excited you more, because the headline band is who you'll want to go and see, is Alter Bridge. Obviously have announced their UK tour for Christmas time in the UK. Yep. And the looks like a really good lineup, as Alter Bridge always do. Alter Bridge always have a good package for a tour. So you've got Alter Bridge, Hailstorm, and Mammoth. So Wolfgang is coming to the UK, and I think that was, well, he was certainly my very first best of album for the podcast. So I'm looking forward to seeing that show and that tour.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, quickly bought tickets for that.
Yep.
And looking forward to going to see them. I think the UK tour is more than London, which is good.
Yes, I'm going to see him in Glasgow.
Yeah, no, it's good. So also recently, we've been to a couple of gigs, haven't we, Brian? I went to see Reef up in Kentish Town at the Forum a couple of weeks ago. Got a new album out, which is called Show Me Your Ace. In fact, you and I met up, didn't we, for a drink?
We did indeed.
Just before that, you were off to see Sting.
You were rocking, I was popping.
Exactly. But Reef were excellent. Got a new album out called Show Me Your Ace, which I think Andy Taylor from Duran Duran is involved in, Brian.
Co-writing, and
you told me.
Yeah, he was co-writing and producing the album. And I did think that he was a sort of semi member of the band playing live with them. And I did say, go and see them.
So I went to this gig and I thought, I wonder whether Andy Taylor's going to be playing with them. So out they came, and they started the gig, and it was really good. And on stage left, there was a person with very long blonde hair, quite slight, quite a petite person. I thought, I wonder whether that's Andy Taylor. Mm-hmm. And I looked more closely, and it was a lady. It was a female. So that obviously wasn't Andy Taylor. That was their touring guitarist. But they were good. Supported by Scarlet Rebels. Who we talked about.
Yeah.
Their album See Through Blue is out at the moment, which I recommend. Met the guys. Nice guys. Had a little chat with them. They're really happy to be on tour. I was talking to them about the fact that when I saw them first, back in of 2019, they were on at midday on a Planet Rock event on not even on the main stage. So obviously they've come on leaps and bounds in the last couple of years. Good on them. Long may it continue. And how was Sting, Brian?
Sting was fabulous. It was a new venue for me in London. I went to see Sting in the London Palladium. So it wasn't Sunday night in the Palladium, it was Saturday night in the Palladium. He played loads of Police hits, lots of a solo album. He did promote his new album, which was a quiet part of the show, if I'm honest.
Okay.
He played 4 tracks off his new album off straight after each other, but it was great. But I think the most memorable part of the show was he opened up the entire show with a young Ukrainian cellist and his acoustic guitar, and he sang Russians, which was a very poignant opening for the show. But he was fantastic. Sting is 70, Matt.
Wow.
And do you know what? Sting was 70. His voice was in absolute great condition. He did 4 or 5 nights at the Palladium. I have to say, he's in great shape and his voice is in great shape. So I think there's a lot of whatever he's doing with his vocals to keep himself in shape. I think there's a lot of professional singers out there should tip their hat to Mr. Sting because he is sounding great.
Well, that's very good. Good stuff. Okay, so that was the news.
It was indeed.
That was good. I enjoyed that. There was a load of few things on the news. I didn't know Sting was 70.
Well, somebody asked me.
Really?
Yeah, someone.
So you shouted out like you normally do. Hey, Sting, how old are you? Just some more interest.
It was just that when I was asked who are you going to see in London, I said I'm going to see Sting, and somebody went, "Oh, he's been knocking about for a while," and you go, well, "I'll have a look," and he's 70, and I thought, anyway. So we're coming to that part of the show, Matthew, where it is my year in rock, and last time I gave you the year that was 2002. I had left university and I was now working now, so we don't have to do that anymore.
What are you saying that I've flogged that joke to death?
No. I'm just getting it in first.
Beating it to death with a stick. I probably have actually, like my impersonations. So it's Brave New World, episode 30.
Uh-huh.
I can't resist doing impersonations. I almost did my Sting impersonation then. Hey, Brian,
please.
How's it going? It's me, Sting. It's got a very high voice, isn't he, Sting? Gordon Sumner. How do we got to that? Yes, 2002. A mere 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Doesn't seem that long ago, does it? Anyway, 2002. It's a good year for me. Went to a few gigs. Highlight of the year for me was, and I might have mentioned this band once or twice. I always, when I'm introducing this band, I always say that. I may have mentioned them once or twice. Diamond Head were back. I think on the last time we talked about 1992, they were back. And in 2002, they were back again. I saw their first electric live show. I drove all the way to Milton Keynes on my own to watch the first electric show of the newly reformed for the second time Diamond Head. I also saw them at the Peterborough Met Lounge. Got some pictures of those gigs, Brian, if you're interested, including one of me with Brian Tatler, where I'm rocking double denim before it was a thing.
I think you
should I?
You have license to put it up on our Facebook page.
I may well do.
Let's see you with rock royalty, Mr. Brian Tatler, the most mentioned man in our podcast.
Funny enough, I thought about a theme for our next episode. But I'll come to that later.
Okay.
As I was thinking about that. Diamond Head, as I said, we're back, which is good for me and other people, of course.
Exactly. It's not just you.
Album-wise, there's a few good albums that came out. Songs for the Deaf by Queens of the Stone Age was out. Now, that was a good album. Third album by Queens of the Stone Age, featuring one Dave Grohl on the drums, who is... big friends with Josh Homme,
Yeah.
And some great songs on there. I think everyone will remember the No One Knows video and also Go With The Flow, those videos, which at the time got a lot of airplay or a lot of play on various video channels.
Yeah.
One of the underrated songs on the album is a song called First It Giveth. Check that out. It's a good album, really good album. Audioslave brought out their debut album, a combination of members of Soundgarden and Rage Against the Machine, which would make them, Brian, of course,
a super group.
Indeed. Thank you very much.
Do you think that they sat around before they came up with the name of Audioslave, or they go, well, we go with Rage Against the Garden? And
that's right. Sound Machine. Actually, Sound Machine could work, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Rage Against the Garden. Yeah, I like the sound of that. Good songs of that album. I mean, it's a really good album. They only did 2 albums. And this had Cochise on it. That was an epic, wasn't it?
Was.
Show Me How to Live, Gasoline, Like a Stone. It's a great album, top to tail.
Very riffy as well too, which you wouldn't. I don't know. Rage Against the Machine wouldn't be one of a band I know a lot about, but certainly from a riff perspective, Audioslave just hit the money for me. And it had Chris Cornell singing, and Chris Cornell can do no wrong for me.
Absolutely. And of course, Tom Morello on the guitar, who we'll come to later.
We will come to later, yes. Gosh.
We better not come to it too much, because that's my bloody hidden gem, for God's sake.
Yes, come to very later. Very, very, very later.
Also in 2002, Rush released Vapor Trails, their first album since Test for Echo in 1996. Notable because it was the first album they released after the sad passing of Neil Peart's wife and daughter. And I remember it was touch and go as to whether Rush would even continue. And of course they did for another 12 or 13 years. And it's a good album, worth a listen. I remember listening to it. I used to walk to work in those days, Brian. And I remember when I was working in Croydon, and I used to listen to it on my Discman or Discman. Is it Discman or Discman? Anyway, my portable disc CD player. I'm doing a kind of a hand gesture as to, it's sitting in my hand like a virtual. These days, I because I've got all retro, I carry a record player on the train and put my vinyl albums on it. I've moved on from Discmans and iPods.
With all of your LPs in your rucksack at the back.
Exactly. a big extension lead to power it, obviously. I get some funny looks on the train, but, got to listen to music, haven't you? So that was 2002. How about you, Brian? How was it for you?
2002, 2000 and tears on the gig front, Matthew, I have to say. I was, it was the lean years. I had the lean years for 2002, because I went to one gig in 2002, and I went with you.
I remember.
That's the only gig I went to.
Oh, you should have come to Diamond Head with me.
I would have doubled my gigs in 2002. I went to see Bad Company, where you actually delivered. You did say you delivered. It was my first time ever in the hallowed halls of the Hammersmith Odeon. I think it was called the Carling Academy or something at that time.
Probably.
So we went to see, first time in the Hammersmith Odeon, to see Bad Company. And I can remember you said, because I could have gone to see them in Glasgow, and you went, no, come down to London, because...
Spend a load of money coming to London.
Yes, and you said Mick Ralphs will probably come and play, because at that time, Dave Bucket Caldwell was playing guitar. But you said, come down to London, Brian, because there's a good chance that Mick Ralphs will come out and play with the band. And guess what?
I delivered.
You delivered.
I didn't know for sure he was coming. Of course, you could have, he might have fallen out, never been friends ever again because of that. I do remember it was a really good gig though. We were about Roger, weren't we?
It was.
It was, and we were just mesmerised by how good Paul Rodgers was, of course.
Mesmerised, annoyed, perplexed, It was just, it was like, why are you 900 years older than us, singing better than ever? He was great.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So that was my one gig. Albums wise for me, 2002 was I've only got a couple just to shout out. I loved, and I'll be interested for any of our listeners what their views on this particular album is. It's Def Leppard's X album, or 10. X10. Yeah. It was quite a poppy album. I loved it. I went to see them the next year on the X tour in 2003, but it's a great album. 4-letter word. There's some real cracking albums, but they went to Sweden and did a lot of writing with outside writers, etc. And it's a bit like Slang, kind of split the audience, and they came back, and I thought Def Leppard X was a great album, and the only other album. And obviously Dave Grohl was a busy guy then in 2002 because he drummed on the Queens of Stone Age album, but he also brought out the Foo Fighters album, which was One by One.
Yep.
And One by One, of all of the tracks that are on it, All My Life, Times Like These, which has become a bit of an anthem in these recent times. It was the first album that Taylor Hawkins permanently was assigned for playing the drums, and Chris Shiflett it was the first one that he played guitar on as well too. I love the album, and my favourite track on the album, and I'm going to put it on the playlist, is Disenchanted Lullaby. It is fabulous. Never released as a single, but it's just the Foos. It's probably my favourite Foo Fighters album. They re-recorded it. They wasted £1 million, Matt, recording it, and then they went back to Dave's studio and recorded it in 2 weeks and redid it. So they wasted, I think Dave said, we wasted $1 million recording it and then went into his garage and re-recorded it. So those are the two albums in 2002, which was X by Def Leppard and the Foos, One by One. So 2000 year, good year.
Indeed. So that was 2002, Brian, 20 years ago. I'm going to bring you a bit more up to date with the next year. I'm going back a mere 9 years to 2013.
Fabulous.
You're very welcome.
Hopefully I will have been to more than one gig in 2013. I can probably guarantee it. I went to more than one gig.
Probably.
So, Matt, interesting we talk about gigs. Now that we're getting back to some degree of normality, you and I have been to a number of gigs. And lots of our friends and followers on the podcast will be starting to think about maybe going back out to gigs again. So we thought it would be a good opportunity for us for those people who might not have been to a gig for a long time and they're going, what do I do? What are the things we need to do? Matt and I decided.
Brian?
What's that?
What's it like, Brian and Matt?
What's it like, Brian and Matt? So we thought it would be a good opportunity to just go through with our experience of gigs, the do's and don'ts. What do you do? What are the things to do in gigs? And maybe share some of our vast experience in the subject of gigs. I obviously am looking at it from a short person's perspective.
Indeed.
So I may have some do's and don'ts.
Yeah, this is, of course, all our opinion, and it's very lighthearted.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, so we start. Where do we start with the? Well, you got to go there, and you've got to go to the venue, haven't you, Brian?
You do indeed, and for research on the subject, because I have researched this very extensively for this educational part of the show, Matthew.
Yes.
I was talking to one of my friends, and we were talking about gigs, and we said one of the most important things to do is when you go to the gig, is bring your tickets, because there's nothing worse than heading off to the gig, and you could be just going down to Glasgow or Edinburgh for me, or I could have been travelling all the way down to lovely old London, and I forgot my tickets. So always remember your tickets. So don't forget your gig tickets.
Yes, that's a good point, actually. I quite often, because I think this way, if I'm going to a gig with my friends, I'll always say to them, "Oh, did you get the gig? Did you get the ticket? I posted it through your list box." Well, of course, I've got them in my back pocket. It's hilarious. Or I'll say to my wife, got the tickets? And she won't know whether I'm asking her or telling her. It's hilarious.
Yes.
Everyone should try it.
So,
fun for all the family.
Fun for all the family. Then, so you've got the tickets in your back pocket, Matthew?
Yes.
And you're heading to, let me just pick something out of the sky. You're heading to Manchester. You're going to see Roger Waters.
Mm-hmm.
You're driving to Manchester. Now, Manchester is a bit like London. You have lots of places that you can go and watch gigs. I recommend to our podcast listeners, please take the tickets that you've not forgotten and check the venue that you're going to. Because don't fall into the trap like Uncle Brian here, where you assume that Roger Waters is playing a big stadium and he's actually playing an arena.
Yeah.
And I've done that. So, boys and girls, check the venue.
And in a similar vein, check the date. My cousin, Sarah, who lives in Nashville, a few years ago, this is a famous family story. A few years ago, she and her husband were going to see U2. They had tickets to go and see U2. And they were very excited, big U2 fans.
Yeah.
And they live in Nashville. I think they were going to Atlanta to see U2. So they drove up, whatever it is, 5-hour drive, 6-hour drive. So it's a long way. And when they got there, they drove up to the stadium, because it was in like the Atlanta and Norma Dome or something. And instead of the car park being packed to capacity and people queuing to get in, they drove straight in. The car park was completely empty. So they went up to this guy and said, "Hi, how's it going? U2 gig? Why they know when? Where is everyone?" And the guy said, "Well, that was last month."
No way! A month out!
They'd mixed up July with June. So they'd missed it by a month. And I think that's a lesson for us all, really. Just keep an eye on the dates.
Yeah.
Of your favourite gig.
Yeah.
Because you could end up being a month or even a day out.
And in these times, Matt, of when our favourite bands are not touring, there's a lucrative tribute act scene.
Yes.
And I read somewhere last week that there was it was in the States where an uber super fan of the Red Hot Chili Peppers decided that he was going to travel across country to go and see the Red Hot Chili Peppers play in a club. Now, the Red Hot Chili Peppers were playing some warm-up shows ahead of the announcement of their world tour and the new album, which came out last month. So this guy travelled all the way to this show thinking it was going to be the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and it was a Red Hot Chili Peppers tribute band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we touched upon that once or twice, haven't we? I imagine that happens quite a lot.
Yeah.
Because you can get all excited thinking, I don't know, the Foo Fighters or Guns N' Roses are playing in Darlington Colliery or whatever it was, that gig you went to years ago. You saw Graham Bonnet and
Easington Colliery.
That's it, Easington Colliery. Whereas actually it is a tribute band. But, so be careful of that one, boys and girls, because, the names are sometimes very similar.
So we've successfully, we've picked the right date. We've picked the right date. We've got our tickets. We've got the right venue. We're going in, Matthew.
Yes. Yeah. What are your thoughts? Well, I always say, go and see the support act. I always say that, and I've always said that for years because I think we've all missed support acts that we've probably regretted, and we've also all left early and probably regretted it as well. And as I mentioned a few weeks ago when I left early from the Smith Kotzen gig and missed Nico McBrain coming on. So, go early, support the support act.
Yep.
Or acts. And you never know who you might see. Everyone starts somewhere. I think we've all probably seen some good opening acts over the years. So go and check them out.
And my advice for those people who are maybe in the category of tallness that I am,
yes,
it's always good if you don't want to be standing beside somebody who's 15 foot tall. Get in early. Get your pitch sorted. You might be close to the front, but at least you've got yourself sorted, because there's nothing more difficult than coming into a gig late thinking you're going to be able to get a good vantage point. If you want to get a good vantage point, get in early, and you might be surprised and you see a mega, a good support band. On a serious note, please remember to protect your hearing.
Yes.
Always where you can get you're able to get good quality earplugs for you, which will help protect your ears, and it won't spoil the fun of the night, because protecting your hearing, particularly if you go to a lot of gigs, it's worthwhile doing, or you get...
It's turning into quite a public service broadcast, isn't it, Brian?
Sorry, mate.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about a modern phenomenon of gigs that I've only noticed in the last few years is people that are desperate. You talk about getting there early. They're desperate to get on the front barrier, which I'm never quite sure about, because you can't go to the bar. You can't go to the toilet. Well, you can, I suppose, but you can't, So that's devotion for you. But I'm not quite sure. I'm a bit more relaxed when it comes to gigs.
Yeah.
I went, as I said, I went to see Reef recently, and I was right at the back, and I was fine. You get a good view. And one thing I don't like. Let's come on to the don't likes. So I'm not a big fan of people sitting on shoulders.
Okay.
And even though one of our friends, he famously, when we were at High Voltage a few years ago,
yes,
his wife was on his shoulders, and was very prominent in the High Voltage footage that's on YouTube. Matt and Hannah. Hello.
Yep.
But I'm not a big fan of it. However, I do remember one of the greatest rock and roll moments I ever witnessed was involving a young lady on the shoulders of a guy at the Rambling Man Fair a few years ago. Airborne were playing, and you remember Airborne were great value. They were fantastic. They had kind of classic 4:00 slot. Everyone's had a couple of drinks, and they had this thing, and they probably still do it, where they throw out beers into the audience. So they have a kind of rack of pints of beer, and they throw them out. And occasionally people catch them. They threw about a dozen out. No one caught them. And then they threw the last one out. And this young lady in a bikini top, very kind of rock and roll, caught it, was on the big screen, caught it and downed it in one. I thought that's rock and roll. That's pretty good. But in general, I'm not a big fan of the shoulder sitters, and they don't get much. I think I'm not alone, because I've seen plenty of people pelted with whatever cups and bottles.
Yes.
For sitting on the shoulders.
Yes. Other things which are part of the don't do's, and I've got is, if you want to take a memento of the show, and you want to take a photograph or a little bit of video footage, just maybe in the first song or maybe the last song, but don't sit with your phone on for the whole show, video and everything. To me, there's go live on Facebook, Brian. Well, that's only for the final count. I do that for the final countdown for Europe. Everybody knows when Europe's touring, because I go live for the final countdown. There's this degree of I put myself up for ridicule amongst all of my friends, because everybody knows I'm such a it reminds me of a story, Matt. I went to see Michael Schenker's Temple of Rock.
Yes. About
10 years ago in Edinburgh, and somebody pulled out of their backpack an iPad. Oh, so they were at the front. It was a small venue. It was reasonably busy, but not packed. And this person was standing right at the barrier and got their iPad out.
Oh,
and Dougie White was the singer. Now, Dougie is basically, somebody is holding up an iPad, recording it, and he's trying to sing and perform. And this person did it for, I don't think they did it for the whole show, Matt, but they did it for most of it. And the people standing behind them was going, you're seriously not going to hold an iPad up for the whole gig. So take a photograph, take a memento, take a little bit of video, but don't video the whole concert. It's not required.
It's unnecessary, isn't it? Because if you notice, you go to a gig and the official photographer's in the pit. They're only allowed to be there for 3 songs. Maybe bands should say that. Yeah, you can take a picture, maybe take a bit of footage.
Yeah,
but three songs only, or 1 song only.
Yeah,
that's it. The final countdown, or Living on a Prayer, or the big songs, whatever.
Yeah,
but don't. Yeah, I never get my head around that because I've done it. I've recorded the odd song like you have. I've never watched it back. I might even look at the pictures occasionally, put a few on Facebook. If they're good enough, I might print them off. But I mean, that's about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, it's funny. We talked once or twice about personal space, and I was thinking about this because we've been going to gigs a long time. I went to my first gig when I was 15, I think I was, long time ago. Iron Maiden at the University of East Anglia. We talked about it once or twice. But what I've noticed, the older we get, and in those days, as we've touched upon, you were crammed in. It was part of the deal.
Yep.
Was that you were packed in like sardines. You were leaning on each other. If you remember, I was quite often in row 3 and my hair was in row 36. It was, whereas the older you get, I think the further back you go in the auditorium, or the least concerned you are about being close, because the sound quality is generally good. You got big screens now. I mean, the early festivals, even before I started going to the early 80s, there were no big screens.
No.
You sometimes this stage was on the horizon. That many people. But I've noticed that the further back you get, you like your personal space. And certainly my wife, if she was here, she would say she doesn't like, as I've said before, she doesn't like that people flicking hair in her face, which unless you've got hair that's about 4 foot long, the personal space should be enough for, not to flick your hair in someone's face. And I get that. What else you got for us, Brian?
From an attire perspective, Matthew.
An attire perspective.
Attire perspective, there's a couple of things. There is, for us guys, don't wear sandals. Yes. Don't wear sandals. Don't wear sandals.
That's a bit specific.
No. I was going to say, don't wear your favorite trainers, and if you want to protect your feet, and particularly if you're in the front of stuff, wear a pair of decent boots, or wear something that you're prepared for people to stand on your feet. Because I have to say, I do remember in my early days of gigs when I'd be wearing my favorite Converse trainers, Matt. I've got all dressed up. I'm wearing my meatloaf denim jacket and my Thin Lizzy t-shirt and a brand new spanking pair of Converses. And I walk out of the gig, and they may have been red when I went there. They were decidedly not red by the time. So be careful with the things that you people will tread on your toes, particularly if you're pogoing. Yes. Yeah. So yes, look after yourself. That you're in amongst other things that don't feel embarrassed about doing a couple of things.
Yes.
And why? There's 2 things which I loved. 3 things I love to do at gigs. Yes. 1, play the air guitar. Do not be embarrassed about it. Do it.
Do it. If possible, bring a couple of air guitars in case one gets out of tune. Of course.
Exactly. You might need it.
Always good to have a backup.
Wise words.
A couple of air amps as well, because you never know, one might go down.
Exactly.
So you need a backup.
Exactly. So air guitars, air drumming. I love to air drum. It can look a little bit silly though in the middle of a field. So yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair, people should do what they like. I mean, we're giving all our do's and don'ts. I mean, as we've said before, music is for everyone. Yeah. And if you're at a concert, or even listen to music, just enjoy yourself, enjoy it. But of course, be wary of the do's and don'ts. What are you going to say? Don't wear your flip-flops to a gig. I think I've done that, Brian, to be honest with you, at a festival. Or don't go barefooted. Don't go naked.
Don't go. No, and the other thing which you probably would recommend for me when we talk about air, so air drum and air guitar, actually for most people for festivals and stuff that we go to, I should probably air sing.
Yes, absolutely. You should. Brian's got this tendency. Brian's got a very good voice, as we've joked about it once. Well, I've joked about it. hundreds of times that he doesn't really play the guitar and he can't sing, but he's very good at both. And he does have a tendency to sing louder than the actual band or the actual singer. And I remember when we were right at the back of High Voltage in 2010, 11. We were watching Thunder, I think it was.
Uh-huh.
And you were singing your head off.
I was.
And we were sitting there, miles back. And some guy turned around to you as if to say, "Oi, you be quiet," because he's trying to listen to Thunder about half a mile away. And I get that.
And that's a lesson for me. Every day is a school day, Matthew. So I think the lesson for us boys and girls is when the lead singer in the band encourages you to sing. Yes. He may encourage you by pointing out the microphone. No. We haven't got those backstage passes yet from David, have we?
No,
we haven't.
Likely to either.
No, we're not. No. So I think the lesson for those aspiring singers amongst us is wait to be invited to sing, because people have paid their hard-earned money to hear David Coverdale or Danny Bowes,
yes,
or Nathan James, or the bloke out of Those Damn Crows, who I don't know very well, but you know who it is. So
Shane Greenall.
Yeah, Shane. Good old Shane. It's let the singer do his job, and Brian, shut up and only sing the choruses for Living on a Prayer. So sing.
Yes.
But one of the things about voices is singing's okay, but chatting and talking.
Oh yeah.
And
that's probably the number one for me, I have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a difference between, do you fancy another pint, or I'm just going to nip to the loo, versus having a full-on conversation about it, or about anything. So how was work today? Yeah, good. Yeah, we had a meeting about it. You're there to watch the music.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. I mean, it's very annoying, I think, to when you're there and it's a slow part, or it's a slow intro or something, and you got someone chatting about it last night's EastEnders.
Yeah.
But yes, I have to agree with you on that one, Brian.
Yes,
don't. It's a bit like Room 101. This is, isn't it? I'd certainly put that into Room 101. People chatting at gigs not about the gig,
and venues as well too. I know there's I'm not going to name the venue. I know there's a few venues that I go to where the bar is it's kind of, the bar's in a little alcove area, and I'm in the main auditorium watching the gig, and then you can hear everybody in the bar because they've moved back to the bar, they've bought their drink, and they're chatting away in the bar, and you have that uncomfortable moment of the band stops. And the bar is just like it. You might as well be in the centre of town and there's no gig on. Everybody's yabbering away and stuff, and I'm kind of going.
Ugh. I know. I remember a friend of mine, or a friend of ours, Trevor Streets. He went to see, I think it was King a few years ago. Great King, and it was a similar setup. And I think Alan Nimmo, the singer, the larger than life, big-hilted singer and guitarist of King, basically said exactly to the folks in the bar, we're trying to do a gig here, can you have a bit of kind of consideration? It's a good point. And but again, people will do what they like. People will do what they do. I guess it's all part of the fun, isn't it? Really?
It is. Another one, which this, as both of us are part of the lead vocalist, lead singers union, a couple of things. Usually bands spend a lot of time working out their set list. In some cases, they'll even have the name. Not that you and I have ever been in this situation where we go, "Am I in Baltimore or Delaware this evening?" And it's I haven't. I don't think I've played 3 shows in a row ever in my life. But in most cases, bands have got a set list, and also bands with all of the new technology, in-ear monitors, and you're aware. Bands sometimes can't hear what the audience are saying. So I do think I've noticed a lot of is if you shout up your request and the band doesn't acknowledge your request, I would let it go, because I'd let it go. And this is a famous one for me, Matthew. I sat one night in Glasgow, and it was an acoustic concert. It was Bryan Adams. Bryan was with a pianist, and himself on acoustic guitar. Very intimate gig. And this lovely girl from Glasgow just needed Bryan's attention. And she just shouted, "I've seen you 26 times for about 10 minutes. Every time there's a break, Bryan, I love you. Seen you, And it was like, for the rest of us in the audience, it's like, he's acknowledged you. Or maybe he's just waved at you. Let it go.
So that, boys and girls, is our whistle stop tour around the do's and don'ts of gigs. In our opinion, of course, supposed to be lighthearted. Again, as we've always said, enjoy the music, enjoy the gigs, get out there, support the support acts, buy the merch, just have a great time. Enjoy yourselves. Get home safely. So, Brian, that brings us to the last part, but not the least part of the old podcast. No one's stopped me recently. I must get out more. No one's stopped me in the street telling me how great they think it is, but I know deep down that everyone does think it's the best part of the old podcast. Episode 30, Brian. And what have you got for us this time in
Hidden Gem Time?
Thank you, Lola. So what you got for us then, Brian?
I'm going to go back 40 years, young Matthew.
Wow.
40 years.
40 years.
Yeah.
Were you at university then? Yeah, weren't you?
No, I wasn't at university then.
Are you sure?
I don't even think I had.
1982.
I didn't even have in 1982 my denim jacket with Meatloaf in the back. No.
Oh.
I got that. That was a post 1983 purchase. Anyway,
Okay.
the hidden gem I'm going with for this episode, and we're going to see this band.
Are we?
We are going to see this band. I think it's either once or twice. We're definitely seeing them at Stone Dead. We are seeing Vandenberg. Yes. If we were recording this, you would see Matt's face, and he did a big yeah. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Vandenberg's first studio album, which was released in 1982. It was produced by Adrian, and it was recorded in Jimmy Page's studios. The big track off the album, which is the power ballad Burning Hearts, but a few of the tracks I'll put on the playlist, which are fantastic. Wait and Your Love Is in Vain. Wait, the intro to Wait, when you hear it, it's fantastic, classical, this neoclassical Yngwie Malmsteen type guitar. But my hidden gem is a band that we will see at Stone Dead Festival, is Adrian Vandenberg's debut album, Vandenberg, which is fantastic.
Very good.
There you go. What have you got?
Very good indeed. Well, I'm slightly cheating this time because this is not that hidden at all, but it is a gem. So I'm gonna talk about a film. It's out at the moment actually, and I thought I'd mention it mainly because I haven't had time to think of an actual hidden gem, but I'm going to go with this anyway.
Okay.
So, boys and girls, I would urge you to go onto Netflix. I think we mentioned it on the Facebook site.
We did.
Actually. And check out Metal Lords. Now, it's pretty, as I would say, it's a bit sweary in places. It's a story of a couple of kids forming a metal band to take part in the Battle of the Bands. It's quite funny. It's quite poignant. It's got a fantastic soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is probably the highlight for me, to be honest with you. There's Black Sabbath, there's Pantera, there's Megadeth, there's Metallica. It's all very metal. And there's an interesting cameo. We mentioned Tom Morello earlier. There's an interesting cameo with Rob Halford, Kirk Hammett, Tom Morello, and
Rob Halford.
Scott Ian. I said Rob Halford. Scott Ian from Anthrax, of course. You need to think about your memory, Brian.
I do. I went along the ways. I was going Scott's first, Tom's second, Kirk, then Rob. So I was expecting to go Rob last. Sorry.
No.
We should rehearse these things more.
We should really. We should do the complete thing and then re-record it, just like we did last time, because it was rubbish. So, yeah, Metal Lords, I would recommend it. It's on Netflix now. Check it out. Good soundtrack. Hopefully the soundtrack will be coming out as maybe an individual album. Who knows?
Who knows?
The acts that were involved, obviously, were very happy for their music to be used, which is always good.
Yeah.
And, it took me back to when I was young, long hair at school. I was in bands then, actually, yeah. I wasn't in a metal band, but good times. So, yeah, check it out. Metal Lords on Netflix.
I will
now.
I will do.
So, Brian, before I'm invaded by cats and a dog.
It is, honestly. This is episode 30.
It's like Dr. Doolittle's house.
Exactly, it is. The Dr. It's episode 30, the animal special.
The animals take over. I've got a feeling this cat, this is Picasso. He wants to be on this podcast, don't you, Picasso? He's enjoying himself, rubbing his face against the microphone, which you can probably hear. Right, that was it. Episode 30, Brian.
Boom.
You want to finish it off for us?
I'll finish it off for us.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Whilst Matt fights with the cat. Thanks everybody for listening to episode 30. We shall see you all next time. We are on, check out the podcast on Apple Podcasts. We're on Amazon. We're on Spotify. You actually now on Spotify can rate the show as well too. So please give us a rating on Spotify and leave us a review as well too, and subscribe as well.
And we're on Twitter at FT80pod and Facebook, of course.
Yes. So
see you next time. Bye.
All right. See you, Matt. See everybody. Take care. Bye now.
For those about to pod, We Salute You is a Maley Rogers media production.